Welcome on into the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your home for second round advice. I'm your host today, Gabe Montes, joined by Jacob Bartley and Justin Morsaz. Gentlemen, I hope you guys are doing well, but guess what? I'm not going to give you any time for an introduction. We are jumping right into it today. We are looking specifically at a few players here, Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford, and we'll start with Deshaun Watson. Now, clearly there's turmoil brewing in Houston. He wants out. It's been stated. Everywhere is reporting it. However, everywhere is entitled to their own opinion as to where this gentleman might land. So today, we're going to give you our hot takes, where Deshaun Watson might just go. And to give you guys a little bit of background knowledge, Deshaun Watson did sign a 4-year, $156 million contract last offseason. So anywhere he goes, he's going to be carrying a lot of baggage with him in terms of money bags. So that's something to consider here. And before I want to hear what you guys have to say, there are clearly a multitude of teams that are looking for an NFL QB this offseason. To name the obvious, we have the New York Jets, probably the San Francisco 49ers, New Orleans Saints, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, New England, Chicago, Washington, Broncos, maybe even the Raiders, my hometown. They're not my hometown, my home team.
Las Vegas.
And even just maybe Pittsburgh, right? Yeah, Las Vegas. So there are a plethora of teams that are looking for a potential new QB. And why not dump the mother load for a guy like Deshaun Watson? So what we're going to do first is let's talk realistically here for a second. What does a realistic opportunity look like for Deshaun Watson, and where do you think that takes him in his NFL career? Justin, I'll start with you.
Deshaun, I think, has all the options. He put it so the ball's in his court. He said, no matter what you guys do, I'm not signing anywhere. And I don't think a team is going to make a trade with them unless they know he's going to be happy. You know, those deals that go behind the doors.
100%.
I heard rumors he wants to go to the Jets, and I get it. That team is in disarray. Maybe Sam Darnold needs a new place as well, so they can do some switches over there. But if I hadn't said the Jets, the place I really like him to go is Detroit, and that's because the news coming out with Stafford. And I know Galladay is up in the air, but if I compare Deshaun and Galladay together and have Swift coming back, and we have a healthy trio in those young players. We were all down on Deshaun. They lost Nuck. It's not going to be the same. He proved us wrong. That's a franchise quarterback, and that can be a team that contends offensively every single game. So I like to see him in Detroit with the news that came out, but right now it's just hopes and wishes. So that's where I stand on that.
Hopes and wishes for Justin Morsaz. And you know what? They're pretty good ones. I'd like to see him in either scenario. I think the Jets are the most realistic option, and I think we can all kind of agree. They have the most draft capital going into next season, so they have the most to offer. And they can even do a potential Sam Darnold swap if they wanted to. Just kind of send Sam Darnold to the same crappy situation that Deshaun Watson was stuck in. So it seems to be the most realistic, but I have my other thoughts. Jacob, what is a realistic opportunity for Deshaun Watson?
So there's one thing that to me makes the Jets not the most realistic option, and that is that Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause in his contract. He has to approve the trade, which is genius by him and his agent for getting that in his contract extension. And look, to me, honestly, if you were to do a fresh from start, draft of the NFL, and you're saying, okay, I want to pick players to start my franchise with, you would probably go Mahomes number one. Who would you argue against Watson going number two in that? Because to me, I want you need a passer in this league. I love Lamar Jackson. He's very talented, but I honestly think Deshaun Watson's more valuable in his ability to pass. So I don't know if there's many. I definitely think he's in the top 5 of players you want to start your franchise with. So that being said, I think any team who doesn't already have their established guy, like I don't think the Chargers should go get him. The Bengals shouldn't go get him. Obviously the Chiefs shouldn't go get him. And even, unless Aaron Rodgers leaves or something, like even the Packers shouldn't try to go get him, But I think a lot of teams who don't have a surefire quarterback there is an option. Obviously, the money has to work out, right? They're going to either have to trade something that matches his contract, or they're going to have enough cap space. And that's why the Jets make sense, right? Because the cap space and the picks. But do you really think he wants to go play for the Jets? I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jacob. I mean, they have a lack of talent, to say the least. Does he want to be showing the ball to Jamison Crowder and I don't even know who else, Sims?
Yeah, and I've heard the Dolphins thrown around as well. But to me, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I want out of the AFC. I want to go to the NFC because you're going to have to go through the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson for the next 10 years. You're going to have to go through Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs for the next 10 years.
The Bills.
To get out, and the Bills to get out of the AFC. If you look at the NFC, you have Rodgers, Brady, Breeze, right? They're all in their twilight. They're all either retiring this year or retiring in the next 2 or 3 years. I don't think Rodgers will probably play for another maybe 4 or 5 years. But still, and who else is your competition out there? It's less competition. So I love Justin's pick of Detroit. I didn't even think about Detroit. And if it is Detroit, then I think Kenny Golladay would stay there for damn sure. Look, I don't want to just be biased, but I really think the San Francisco 49ers should find a way to make this happen. It's weird, though, because Deshaun Watson isn't the style of quarterback that Shanahan necessarily runs his offense with. But to me, I say, screw that. You bring him in, you figure it out. Look, they already have the defense in place. If they could get everybody healthy, they have Kittle, they have Debo and Ayuk. I think that would be a great option for him. And it's not just because I'm a Niners fan. Like, I think that'd be smart for him, for them, but they have to make the money work because I don't think they have a lot of cap space. So maybe they can just dump Garoppolo off with some picks and some other young players. That would be my choice.
Yeah.
The scenario there is highly, appetizing for a player like Deshaun Watson. Tons of talent there. A head coach in Kyle Shanahan who's produced numerous other head coaches in the league, and he runs an offense that's so dynamic. I think Deshaun Watson would fit perfectly there. To kind of disagree a little bit with what you said, Jacob, but I do like the fit. I think it's a realistic option. They don't have a lot of draft capital, so they'd have to really turn some heads, maybe even give away some of that key defensive pieces. But Justin, you have something to add?
I'm gonna throw a dark horse in there, and I know if he's a win now type of player, it might be a glimmer of hope. But the Jacksonville Jaguars have a lot of space, a lot of room, and I know they're not really happy with their quarterback situation. They have Laviskis, they have Shark, James Robinson's coming up. That's a nice offense where I can see himself wanting to go and have sure playing time and a chance to be good in that division. And I don't think it's going to happen because there's no way they trade him to a division rival, but I think it would be a nice spot to go to for him.
Well, I would say, honestly, Jacksonville would be a great fit if they didn't have the number 1 pick and weren't going to draft Trevor Lawrence. And do they trade the number 1 pick? Basically, do they trade Trevor Lawrence for Deshaun Watson? Maybe that helps them win right now. But considering what they're going to have to pay, the difference in what they're going to have to pay each guy, I think they just stick with Trevor Lawrence. But otherwise, I think that's a great
I was considering that, but you tell me, look at all the quarterbacks coming out, and I'll even give you the top 3 of each draft. I would probably take Deshaun Watson knowing what I have than risking it. You know what I mean? That's the thing. If you give that first-round pick, you don't have to throw maybe anything on top because that's the first-round pick. So
basically just Trevor Lawrence and he's like the most highly coveted guy since Andrew Luck. So I think
will he cut it? That is.
I think if you're the Texans, you do that in a heartbeat. But he would be pissed. I bet Lawrence would be pissed.
All right. Well, I have my take. You gentlemen have done a great job of providing your own, but you guys didn't mention the new team. All right. And I think this team has a real opportunity to snag Deshaun Watson. Not to mention they're one of the only few teams that have the cap space to do it. They have a lot of young talent and a very, very talented wide receiver and a newly acquired rookie running back who had a fantastic season. They have a head coach who's coming into his second year, a dynamic offensive coordinator, that is the team that has no name, the Washington football team. I think that is a great landing spot. You look at a coach like Ron Rivera, who had a player of Deshaun Watson's caliber only years ago in Cam Newton, that same type of running prowess, arm. Now, obviously, Cam Newton has taken a far left turn in his career. Deshaun Watson's still on the straight and narrow. I think that's a perfect fit. I think that's a grounded, reasonable opportunity that can make it happen. And if I had to go completely unrealistic, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they need to get rid of Big Ben. Talk about another group of wide receivers that are young and talented. I mean, Juju, who hopefully stays. I hope so. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and then Deshaun Watson. That is filthy, but unrealistic.
Dude, honestly, like, I'm mad because both of yours I love. And Washington football team would be a great fit, honestly. That might be the best fit. Their defense is in place. They have, Terry McLaurin. Maybe they sign another receiver. But do they have the draft capital? And do they have the pieces in place to trade?
So they may not likely have the draft capital. They're looking at a mid-round pick this season. They do have some other picks next year. But all I know is that they have the cap space to take that money. Something I know a lot of these other teams are going to have to really alter. Mm-hmm. They could, I don't know, could it just be a cash deal and a couple of picks? That might be what we see here. But I think that's a great opportunity for him. What's up, Justin?
I thought Deshaun to Golladay sounded amazing, but I really like the sound of Deshaun to McLaurin. That sounds amazing to me. I'm with you. I like it.
And it only helps Antonio Gibson, too.
I like
this
that.
This is very true. So as we simmer our sweet tooths on the opportunity of what could be, we have all offseason to think about it, or at least up until free agency. So while we do that, let's think about another man that we could talk about. And that's Matthew Stafford, QB for the Detroit Lions. He's been shown the door by that organization after, I think, 9+ seasons or so. I mean, the guy is just durable. Great quarterback as well. But he will likely find a new home come the 2021 NFL season. And with that, let's let the speculation begin. Jacob Barley, you got something for me?
Man, so this is a completely different situation. So we heard we know they're parting ways, right? So
yes.
Does that mean they're going to cut him? At a mutual agreement to part ways, they cut him?
They are planning to waive him. Yep. So he'll be a free agent.
So he'll be able to sign a new contract. And we have to think that, okay, and that's the thing. We have to think who could sign him realistically, and what is he going to be asking for? I think he's willing to take a pay cut in order to go to a contender. And I don't know their financial situation. We probably should have researched it, whatever. We're casual fantasy football talk. It should be our slogan, actually. Well, hey, second round advice. See, we don't know all our shit. That's our second round advice. But if I'm him, and I know I talked about the AFC being very stacked, but there's one vacancy that is looking juicy, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. If I was a quarterback looking for a new home, I would want to get on that team ASAP. I do think Washington's a great option. The Niners are an appealing option, but man, that defense, offensive line, Jonathan Taylor came into his own. When you have a running back like that, it just does wonders for a quarterback. They have a decent, I don't know if they're re-signing T.Y. Hilton, but I think Michael Pittman Jr. is a very, very talented receiver. And if he has a good look, Rivers was serviceable last year, but Stafford's a better quarterback right now, I would say. And I think Stafford has another good, solid 4 years in him. So I think you bring him in. He's a veteran. He steps right in, maybe elevates that team from what they were last year, almost beating the Bills in the playoffs. And I think they'd be a great fit. I don't know about the financial situation. Maybe they have to move some money around, but that's what I would do if I was Stafford.
Well, I think we can all agree that Stafford's a cheaper, commodity than Deshaun Watson. Jacob, you stole the pick right from me. The Colts are my favorite and most realistic pick to land him. You couldn't take what Phillip Rivers has done over his career and kind of compare it to Matthew Stafford. They're virtually just like that guy, that does stuff for their team, the longevity that they both have. I really like the pick, Jacob. And to put it in perspective, the Colts have the number 21 pick going into the NFL draft. We're not looking at a guy who's going to garner tons of first picks and tons of value and tons of young talent. Matthew Stafford is likely in the twilight of his career, and he's still going to be serviceable and a great quarterback, but you're not going to be paying up for what you were paying for Deshaun Watson.
Well, they might not even have to trade, though, if he gets waived.
Could just be a couple of picks. Oh, that's true. Didn't even think about that. Justin, do you have something else?
Yeah, I do. Indy was the obvious choice, but as I think of it more, I have one preferable one and one dark horse as always, and I really like to see him in the Niners situation because
it's a good one.
They have a lot of amazing players that missed this last season, and they still won 6 games. So if I'm Stafford, I'm like, why is that division not winnable? And I want to go there and be a quarterback. He plays for the Lions, so what do we know about the Lions? They never make the playoffs, and I think this man wants to taste some playoff action, and I think the Niners are a great chance. One other spot that I'm not sure, the money situation, but the Patriots. I think Cam's done. There's no backup there. If Belichick can get a Tom Brady light in Stafford,
light.
that might be something nice that can get them back to a winning culture, because this last year was not the Patriots we all know. I prefer to see them in Indy or San Fran, but the Patriots sound good to me too.
Yeah, the Patriots are also kind of an ideal option, someone that you're not going to have to pay, especially when you're in a competing market like Deshaun Watson. The Patriots have been known to find diamonds in the rough, and oh my gosh, Matthew Stafford's no diamond. He's already a proven diamond, I should say.
Dude, but Stafford
that's actually really nice. I like that.
Stafford wants to win, man. I mean, but that's the thing. Belichick will find a way if he has a good quarterback, But yeah, because I believe Stafford has never won a playoff game. They've been to the playoffs, but I don't think he's ever won a game.
That's heartbreaking to hear.
And you know that guy's competitive. And look, Justin, it's music to my ears. Look, if we can't get Deshaun Watson, I would love to bring Stafford into the Niners, to be honest, because I've been a fan of Stafford his whole career. Like, I've always rooted for him. And look, he's only 32 is not old in quarterback years. Once you start to getting up to 34, 35, 36, then, you start to, lose it a little bit. But I still think he has a lot of good years. So I'd be very happy with that.
Most definitely. Yeah, the more I think about it in my head, I love the pick of New England. I want them to be competitive again. It's sad to say it, but damn it, the league is good when the Patriots are good. It just feels right because it's been what we've been used to for so long. But again, this is all speculation, things that we have to think about. We have the entirety of the offseason up until free agency to think about this. With that being said, we're going to touch on one more topic today, and that is the Baltimore Ravens backfield and their outlook in 2021. Now, Mark Ingram is also expected to be waived here shortly, which leaves J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. And the only reason why I kind of found this just a little bit interesting is because I don't think it's as cut and dry as one might think. J.K. Dobbins came on strong towards the end of the season and proved to be very relevant for his team, not necessarily for fantasy. If you look back at the season stats last year, it was a very well-known committee backfield. Only twice last season did did Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins both eclipse 15 touches in a single game. That only happened to each of them twice. So I think the opportunity is there, but if this is a committee backfield in a run-heavy offense, who are you more preferable to take? I think it's J.K. Dobbins, but I'd like to hear your guys' view as to where you might consider taking him in the NFL, or not in the NFL, in next year's fantasy draft, or should you just stop me in my tracks right now because you know that J.K. Dobbins is solidified as the new workhorse back in Baltimore? Justin, I'll start with you.
I'm going to stop you, and it's no doubt going to be Dobbins. I don't think anyone playing next to Lamar is going to be getting 20 rushes a game. It's just they're a run team, but he runs a lot, so that's just how it goes. I know for a fact that Dobbins pretty much solidified it at the second end, like basically the last 6-8 games of the season last year. He was doing the majority of the rushing. And as I like Gus Edwards, I think he's just a change. I don't think he's a feature back. I think they want to see what Dobbins can do. And this upcoming season will be his chance to show what he can do. So I wouldn't think Gus takes the reins, but you never know.
Look how close it was let's just say last 5 games of last season. Dobbins, 14 carries, 11, 13, 9, and 10. You go to Gus Edwards' last 5 games of the season. You have 15, 12, 8, and 10. So I think you're right there that if there is going to be a clear cut, it's probably Dobbins. They invested the draft capital in him. You want to see it. You want to believe it. But Jacob, do you have anything else to add as to sway in either direction? Are you drafting J.K. Dobbins next year in fantasy drafts? Maybe, let's say right now, in the 4th round.
Well, or you just keep him if you have him in a keeper league. I think that's what I'm going to do. But no, I actually think it's all – look, with the Ravens, they've always had guys mixing in here and there. Like, there's never been a full workhorse back. I mean, Ingram, even when Ingram had that good year, like not this past season, but the year before, he still wasn't getting all the work. There was other guys mixing in as well, including Gus Edwards. But actually, Gus Edwards is a restricted free agent this season. So I don't know necessarily what that means for in the NFL. Like, can they match offers kind of like they do in the NBA? But there's a possibility he's not here either. But I do think, considering how they like using multiple guys, I do think they're going to keep him as well. But still, this is one of those situations. It's not a Derrick Henry usage or a Christian McCaffrey usage, but it's that next tier down where it's like, this is the guy. And to me, I think once we really get into it and we're start preparing for preseason and all that stuff, I think we're going to be looking at Dobbins as a 2nd or 3rd round guy, to be honest.
Yeah, to mention that 2019 season, Mark Ingram had 202 rushing attempts. Last year, obviously a full-blown committee. Dobbins and Gus Edwards both had around that 135 to 140 range. So I do expect to see an uptick. But do you think – Justin, I'll let you add to it before I throw the last curveball in there. You got anything to piggyback off of what Jacob said?
I was going to ask, do you think his draft capital definitely goes higher? Are you going to draft him near Swift, or does he still fall considerably lower than Swift?
Ooh. If you'd rather have one or the other, who would you have?
It's tough to tell because we don't know the Detroit situation. But let's say we knew Stafford was coming back and they're keeping Galladay. They're running it back. I would lean towards Swift. I don't know. I think, even though Dobbins can catch, I think Swift is one of those guys where he's getting 5 targets a game every game.
PPR. Yeah.
But who knows though? What's Detroit going to do if Detroit's in a situation where they're starting some random? Who knows who they're going to start? They might sign. Look, there's a ton of backup quarterbacks who are free agents. Like Jacoby Brissett is a free agent. Somebody's going to sign him. Maybe he gets a starting job somewhere like Detroit. Who knows? I think he's a decent quarterback actually, but so I think we have to wait and see. But if I had to choose right now, it would be Dobbins actually.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how much Dobbins stock has risen because of this. That's interesting.
Yeah, he's in that conversation. Like I don't know about you guys, but I think like maybe Taylor kind of cemented himself as the number 1 out of this class right now. Like
so far,
right now, Gibson.
Well, either one. Gibson, Taylor. It's crazy because CEH was before the season, but he's definitely not in my number 1 spot. Or I'd honestly rather have Dobbins or Swift than him.
Justin, who would you rather have, Dobbins or Swift?
Cam Akers. But no,
Cam Akers too.
I'll go Swift just because I like what they see in him, and I wasn't a believer, and he proved me wrong. And he gets goal line work now, and he's a pass catcher, so it's win-win for me on the Swift. Whereas Dobbins with Lamar kind of teeters me away from it. But
point.
Yeah,
I just think we know exactly what J.K. Dobbins' situation is going to be next year, unless they bring in somebody else.
Very true.
We know what it's going to be.
Yeah. It's something to keep an eye on.
The future is a little bit, clearer for J.K. Dobbins. That he's not going to go below 150 carries. He's going to see something like that possibly even more into the 200 range, which is what you want. Swift, they have a new head coach in Detroit. That could be something to monitor, something to look out, but I feel like it could only improve his scenario. They're taking the offensive coordinator from, I think, which was the Atlanta Falcons. So something to monitor, but Swift is a featured back, and I think he should be. I think carry on. Hey, I love you, man. AP, it's time for you to get out of town, my man.
I mean, that's the thing, man. If you're a smart coach or a smart offensive coordinator, use your best players. And they got to use Swift. They got to use these young running backs while they have them under rookie contracts because get the most out of them.
Totally irrelevant, but also kind of relevant. If Mark Ingram signs, would you have any interest? Let's just say I can't even think of it off the top of my head. He just lands in the perfect scenario, and they're going to give 31-year-old. They're going to give this 31-year-old a starting job. Where is it, and are you drafting Mark Ingram in 2021 as a 32-year-old running back? A lot of people didn't draft AP, and if they did, they stole him at the end of drafts. And hey. AP is going to do AP things until he falls off the wagon completely. But he was probably a little bit serviceable throughout the year there, but totally wonky.
I don't want this at all, but honestly, I guarantee you Shanahan's going to sign 3 running backs. He's going to sign like Jamal Williams, somebody else, and a Mark Ingram. And then in that scenario, Mark Ingram could have 8 touchdowns, but I still, no matter what, unless he's on the Niners, I do it for bias. But I'm not touching him unless we hear Mark Ingram is our guy and he's going to be our starting running back going into the year, with whatever team hires him. But no, he'll probably be on a team, but he's not going to have even an RB3 role, I don't think.
Yeah, tough days ahead for Mark Ingram. Justin, you got a thought before we say salud?
The first thing that comes to mind is if Jones and Williams leaves Green Bay, he goes in there and has assurance behind the second-year Dillon. Yeah, so that wouldn't be a bad spot for him.
Man, you know what? That's why we got Justin on the show, to cover our blind spots. That is going to do it for today, folks. That's all we got for you. Be sure to join us on Facebook at First Round Fantasy. Let's see what else do we got. Instagram at First Round Fantasy. If you have a question for the show, firstroundfantasy@gmail.com. Also Twitter, First Round Fantasy. We thank you so much for listening today, and we'll catch you next time. It's the offseason, baby. Let's speculate. Have a good one.